Hey everyone, Happy New Year's from iFanboy. We're gonna ring out the old year and bring in the new year just like we always do with GoDaddy.com. Head over to GoDaddy.com for all your domain name needs. You can do coupon code iFanboy, you get 10% off your purchase. Hang on. Netflix.com, you get /iFanboy, you get a 2-week free trial, so that's pretty great. And of course, you can get your t-shirts, your iFanboy the Intern t-shirts at jinx.com/iFanboy. So, GoDaddy, Netflix, jinx.com. You're not supposed to shoot those at people. Happy New Year.
This week on iFanboy, we're talking about continuity.
Welcome to yet another episode of iFanboy, the comic book discussion video show that is generated from the website iFanboy.com.
We've lost that opening.
My name is Ron.
I'm Josh.
I'm Connor. This week's going to be a little different. We're not talking about any particular book. We're
not talking about comics.
We're going in a different direction.
We're not even going to talk.
We're not talking about a particular creator.
Is this a format change?
Yeah, we're going to talk about an issue.
An issue?
An issue.
Which issue?
In comics.
Issue
like
Superman?
number 12?
Yeah. Yes. Continuity.
Number 12 has problems with commitment.
If you read comics, you know what continuity means. If you're new to comics, you may not know. Continuity.
What is continuity?
Continuity is the sort of the fabric of a reality.
Okay.
You know, it's like
I thought it was the sequence of events.
Well, that make up a fabric of a reality.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the events that take place in an order.
We're off to a good start.
Where this is going to be a fun one. That basically make up the reality of a certain whatever book or universe you're reading.
Yeah. So what is a real world example of continuity?
Well, this is what's happening now is in our continuity, our real life continuity.
Okay.
The dream I had with Jessica Alba last night, not in continuity.
It was an Elseworlds tale?
Okay. Yeah.
This is in our continuity.
The $20 you owe me from last week,
Yeah,
that's in continuity.
That's also not in continuity. It's been ret-conned out. So continuity in comics is becoming increasingly important. I feel like the more you read, I feel like the more people are obsessing over continuity and its importance.
Right. Or shunning it on the alternate side.
Right, and I think it's sort of, I feel like, this is unscientific, just my feeling, it's coming almost to a head because
the comic world is being torn in two over this topic.
You've got two camps. You've got people who really don't really care that much, people who really obsess about it.
Yep.
And there's some in the middle, but there's mostly these two
Do you
camps.
think most people are in the middle, but the vocal people are at
Well,
the
we should probably. I mean, it probably would help to explain why continuity is a topic in comics or an issue
and
in
where
comics.
it came from.
Yeah, because like Connor said, it's the fabric of a reality, and what both Marvel and DC have been doing since the 50s, 60s has created these comic universes, comic realities. Marvel is the one that's credited with it mostly because the example of all of the majority of the heroes all lived in Manhattan in the 60s.
It's one shared story.
Exactly.
All of the stories are happening concurrently.
Together, yeah.
Yeah. So if Spider-Man is fighting Green Goblin on the Brooklyn Bridge, ostensibly at the same time, Fantastic Four is arguing over who did the dishes last night. Mm-hmm. And the Baxter Building, unknown of what's going on in either of their type things. But then if Captain America is driving to his apartment in Brooklyn, he might drive by Spider-Man fighting Green Goblin because they're in a shared universe. So what that gets complicated is that you've got that broken out into 22-page comic books that come out monthly. And so what's happening in this comic might be referenced or referred to in this comic. And as long as they all come out in order, you can follow the continuity. But every now and then, because we're human, things kind of fall out of place.
Well, you've got multiple problems. One is you've got 40 years now of stories. But for me, the reason
They're
why...
just like there's a huge trailer behind them. It's just full of stuff, and it's impossible.
The reason
to
why I want to talk about this is because I've been reading comics since the early 80s. I've been going to the comic store every week since the early 90s. And it's only been the last 5 years where I felt like people are really obsessing over going crazy about continuity issues, and it's almost to the point where they talk about continuity issues more than they talk about the story themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's a bad direction to be heading in, because if you get to the point where you're only obsessed over the minutia of things making sense together, then you're going so inside the book and so insular in the world that
you're missing the point.
Yeah, the point of the story, the point of the comics is to tell a good story.
Right.
It's not to make sure everything lines up in a row, which is impossible. And I thought I think we've got 3 almost distinct camps here. Ron is very much
Love
in the he needs continuity to make sense camp.
No, not that I need it. I love it. I love that idea of a
You need
shared
it, love
universe.
it.
Yeah.
And Josh could take it or leave it, and I'm sort of in the middle.
I would even go as far as to say that he could leave it. I would say that you the story above the continuity.
But before we get into that, I want to say that we all also appreciate it.
No, I do. I definitely do. It's neat.
And we all like to argue over it, and we have a weekly audio show. We do argue over it, and it's fun to talk about. But I think we also, at the end of the day, I could probably not care. As much as fun as I have arguing about it at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that it can go either way, and I think the one thing I'm learning recently is that it depends on where you're coming from and when you're reading the story. And this is maybe something that we can get into, but I was recently reading Starman trades.
The old trades, yeah.
Right.
James Robinson.
Right, which
Comics.
which on their own, they were published almost 10 years ago, or they started 10 years ago now. And I'm in the middle of the 5th or 6th trade, and there's a reference to something else, some event that was going on in DC. And all of a sudden, all of the people in the book lost their powers for no reason. Yeah. And it's the end of this big story that had been going on. And at the time, I'm sure everybody's like, oh, we nailed that. But now I was like, what the hell is this? And it was like, see Genesis 1. So it depends. Now, when we're reading Civil War, we were all like, this is stupid, it doesn't make sense. Or we're reading, Mighty Avengers and New Avengers and things like that. That affects how you're reading it now. Yeah. So it really depends on, you almost have to make a choice.
I think that's a really good point, where if you're focused on one title and one story, you're looking at the quality of the stories. But if you're reading a line of comics, like many diehard fans often do, you're looking at multiple comics in the universe. And when they do crossovers and things like that tie them into each other, you can do anything but be conscious of the other stories.
But it's a time and a place thing, too. He's reading it 10 years on, where he can't read them in when it came out. So it's going to affect.
It's kind of like the mid-'80s with Secret Wars, when all of a sudden there's a point where everybody left and went to Battle World, and then they came back the next month, but they...
Don't look at me for... I don't know what you're talking about.
But Secret Wars went on for a whole year,
right.
And so it was kind of like they were referencing stuff that happened in a series that hadn't even come out yet, so continuity, like Spider-Man had a new costume, and it was like,
right.
I know when I was a kid, I would go to the comic store, and I'd just pick up a random issue out of the back issue bin and buy it, read it, take it home and read it, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I feel like... you probably couldn't do that now because everything tends to be connected to one big event.
I don't know.
And B, I feel like comic readers now, for the most part, couldn't do that. They'd want to know how it all fits together. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Where in the world?
It's as if the most OCD of all comic book readers are all the ones who are left now.
It's like it's like evolution has weeded out the casual fan.
It's funny because the things that when I remember first reading comic books, I remember for whatever reason I had a paper bag that was full of Avengers comics from the late 70s or the early 80s, and I loved them.
Quest.
And they were I don't even remember. They were just, I'd pick it up in the middle of a story. I'm sure I didn't have a complete run of any of them, but I would read it, and I still liked it. And the asterisks, which I guess it's ironic, but I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved the like, look at what's happening. That's how I found other books back then.
Yeah,
and now, like, it
trail.
annoys people. And maybe that's because comics were 60 cents then as opposed to $3 or whatever, but like...
But I mean, like, it was things like Marvel. I know I've mentioned this before, stuff like that. But literally, I remember recently reading the Nova Essentials, and in one of the issues, it says, like, I think Thor flies by, and it's like, to see where Thor's going, go to Avengers number, and like, it was literally like almost like a cross promotion kind of thing. And as that idea of them, existing in the same universe, but when they start tying to events, and I think that happens more often now because we get caught up and tied up, like, for example, the Marvel universe. From somebody looking at that universe right now, the whole Avengers kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because of lateness and deadlines and stuff like that, you've got Mighty Avengers going here, you've got New Avengers going here, and you've got everything else kind of happening, World War Hulk and stuff like that. Someone like me, I want to know, where do these sequence of events fit in? Because okay, is World War Hulk happening before or after the Ultron battle in Mighty Avengers?
But it doesn't matter, though. You're reading Mighty Avengers, and do you need to know that to enjoy the story? No.
I'm acknowledging you don't need to know that to enjoy the story. I've matured enough to I can still enjoy the story and not worry about it. Mm-hmm. But when I step back, and as a Marvel zombie, as a fan of the universe, I step back and look. Okay, I've got all these pieces on the table. For some reason, there's something innate in me, and it could be a disorder. It makes me want to sequence them so I understand the big picture, how the story lays out in front of me.
I think that time is something that is concrete. Like, this happens from 1 to 2, this happens from 2 to 3 on this date and whatever. Now, when you take it in terms of continuity when you talk about comic books. You've got to turn that concrete thing into something abstract. Now the problem is then you go back and you look at it, you're trying to make something concrete about it, and like it doesn't seem to fit together, and it's ultimately unsatisfying. But
it happens in movies as well. I mean, like the same thing with movies where there's a timeline and stuff, especially movies that play with time, like the Back to the Future series and stuff like that. You want to say, okay, at this point this happens. Well, yeah, no, exactly, and then it goes. Ultimately, it drives you crazy.
The problem with that is time in comics is not the same. One issue of Avengers doesn't take place over the same amount of time as Astonishing X-Men, which takes place, the entire run takes place over the course of a week.
And that's the abstract that I'm talking about. You've got to be able to wrap your head around.
But for me, as an X-Men fan, like I understand that Astonishing X-Men, what's going on in Astonishing X-Men right now, which has taken 4 or 5 years to come out, is going to be about a week in the terms of their continuity. But with Messiah Complex going on now, and with other kind of events, I want to know, okay, does this happen before or after what happened in Astonishing X-Men? Because that influences the bigger picture of what the characters' motivations and what the characters are doing around.
But now think about what I was saying earlier in terms of Starman. Does it really?
That's the question.
And the thing is,
like in 10 years when you read the Astonishing hardcover,
and if I'm a writer,
and if you read the Messiah Complex hardcover, you won't.
If I'm a writer and I want to make stories that stand the test of time, like if I want to write, Dark Knight Returns, or I want to write the Green Lantern, Green Arrow saga, I don't think I want to so much think about what people are going to say the week it comes out.
Right.
I want people to be able to keep reading it forever, and I don't want to throw them out of it. And so that is making me come down on the side of, let the people tell their stories. And continuity is good to an extent, but don't let that push what you're doing. Don't let that tell your story.
My increasingly, and I came up with this theory a while back, but increasingly I feel more.
He writes down a formula.
I've got this whole big blackboard, like a 52. Is that
he does.
You have to make your own continuity.
Yes,
I think you can't ever make it all make sense. So you've got to decide for yourself what you want to believe happened when. Batman Year One is one of the best Batman stories ever written, and it was taken out. It was removed from continuity with the 0 Hour event. It's no longer.
Oh, that's tragic.
It's no longer
especially since no one remembers the 0 Hour.
Yeah, it's no longer this random event.
Booster Gold is going to go back to 0 Hour.
Well,
the Booster Gold
in
is
DC right now, they're trying to bring back all those things that we've forgotten about. DC 1 million.
This one event that nobody likes removed one of the best Batman stories of all time.
Yeah.
For DC, not for me. For me, that's still Batman's first year. I think you have to decide. All right, I like the story. Therefore it happened.
Well, and it's interesting because there's often some things like there's some stories like Marvel with the Marvel Knights line now are all stories that are out of continuity. Right. Like they did Silver Surfer Requiem, where Silver Surfer ostensibly dies, but he's in Annihilation going on right now because those stories are out of continuity.
And they're written to be out of continuity.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just something that happened and was removed.
Right, exactly. They're taking a character and they're writing it, saying, "Listen, this isn't part." And the way I kind of look at it is, I try to compare it to TV versus movies, where TV shows tend to be episodic. You watch ER, Grey's Anatomy, whatever shows you watch. Even My Name Is Earl,
or shows that aren't hospital shows.
Yeah, or even
Scrubs,
even The Office or whatever.
Chicago Hope,
and those are on. Usually every week or every couple of weeks when there's not a strike, but they're on every week and they refer back to things that happen, and each week propels the greater story forward. Whereas a movie is you've got a finite bit of time, unless it's a series like Star Wars or something like that, but you've got like 2 hours where there's continuity within those 2 hours, but it begins and it ends.
The thing is though, in TV shows, continuity doesn't always match up either because it can't match
there
up.
are problems. Yeah, there are problems.
You can't physically keep it all together.
I think you could if you
but
really
the thing
tried.
is, if you're a continuity editor, like in a movie, though, are really concerned with minutiae. It's about like what shoes they had on and
or
if
where
the flower was here. Right. I mean, that's what continuity in movies is. Continuity means, in that sense, when you take the camera, you go from here to over there, that it looks the same and it doesn't jar the reader. And I think that really, when you talk about continuity in comics, I think they need to concentrate just the extent that it doesn't jar the reader.
Yeah.
And other than that,
I'm not worried about whether or not Spider-Man's costume is ripped in one panel, it's not in the other panel.
Right.
And I think you're right. More predominantly in movies, they're worrying about.
I think continuity in movies doesn't mean what it means in comics. It's different things.
No. But hang on. But the thing is that you've got to be able to tell a sequence of things where a character might not know something and then they find out something, and then 2 other characters might be talking about that character, and the knowledge that character doesn't know what they're talking about is important at that point. And if you put in a scene, if you take a movie and put in a scene where then they know about what's happening, it throws the continuity off.
Also, to expand on that, when you talk about continuity, if you've got a book, if you've got a title where, like, say, Spider-Man, there's 3 titles.
Yeah.
Your Spider-Man's got to basically be the same in all of them.
Yeah, and it's a challenge.
And that's the difference between now and the 60s, where you had Amazing Spider-Man, and you had Uncanny X-Men,
Right.
and you had Avengers,
look
and you didn't have 4 of each book. Keeping everything together is impossible.
Look at what's going on right now. Is that in New Avengers, Brian Bendis is doing this whole Skrull invasion storyline, and we found out that possibly Black Bolt was a Skrull. We don't know how long he was. It's kind of the whole big thing. And in World War Hulk kicks Black Bolt's ass. And when that came out, you didn't really understand why, because Black Bolt should be more powerful than Hulk and blah, blah, blah. And then we find out that he was a Skrull. That's probably why he got his ass kicked.
We don't know that.
But we don't know that because I don't really know where World War Hulk fits in the continuity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how does that story influence the other story? And
But
the problem
for me, it does, because I say, all right, well, that was a Skrull. Black Bolt.
yeah, right, exactly.
You'll go crazy.
Well, that's the thing, but it balances between whether you're enjoying the single story or you're enjoying the pull back 10,000-foot view of the collection of stories.
Another thing that's happening now that I don't think happened in Stan and Jack's time is that there's events now where all the books have to push towards a point where they all have to meet at the same place, and they've started from completely disparate places, and they have people doing it through a completely different method. But when it comes to the point, like Civil War is about to start, you've all got to be here.
Yeah.
And that's rough on a writer.
And here's where I'm going to sound like a politician. Blame the internet.
I agree.
Internet. Wow.
I blame you. I blame you there. It's your fault.
I love you.
And us, actually.
Because now you've got
Because we're fueling the fire.
I know.
Throw a log on.
You've got a place now where you can dissect it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past,
Well, you had the letters
I'd go to the
the Marvel got to choose
No, don't
those.
discount the letter pages. Meant a lot in the 60s and 70s,
they did.
and people argued over shit
yeah,
like
but
that
it's
all the time.
It's not at all like
the internet is that letters pages times 100.
times 100 million.
Well, that and the other thing is, Marvel got to choose what they put in their letters.
Right,
page.
right.
And
when I
they
would
don't
go to
now.
the store
But
and buy the
surprisingly,
comic,
they were very frank about what they put
True,
in.
but
Yeah.
they did get to choose.
when I go
were
to
the
buy the comic, I read it. I put it in the box. I don't then go to the internet and dissect it.
Right.
I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's what happens now. So
Which is
therefore,
interesting, since you're a comic book
But then-
personality on the internet.
No, I'm saying I didn't do that when I was 8.
Your job. But then go back to the TV analogy.
No, I'm
look
saying
at
I do that now.
Right, yeah.
And that's what I didn't do then. So therefore, you can focus on the little things.
Lost on TV.
Right.
That
I think
is
Lost would have been successful without the internet.
good question. I think Lost would have been successful without the internet, but I still think people would be talking about, because that's place of time and stuff like that, where things fit in the continuity and all that kind of stuff. I mean, because Lost is pretty much a comic book on TV. If you look at it, the way the story structures are and stuff like that.
Delays.
And the thing is, and you're right. I mean, I think the internet, if you look at the internet, Lost has been successful because of the internet. People go on there and argue over when stuff happened and
It's
all
like,
this
I think
kind
if
of
Twin
stuff.
Peaks had come out now,
Oh, get dissected.
you would have, all I had to talk was me and my friend who watched it. And that's all I could talk to about.
Yeah.
Now I can.
But so do you think, but in blaming the internet, do you think that they're making
Now, when
bad
I say blame, I don't mean it's bad. I'm saying the internet is fueling the continuity of the thing.
but then are the creators reacting to the reactions on the
Some.
internet?
Some do, yeah.
I think the smart ones don't.
Yeah.
If I'm a comic book creator working for Marvel, I don't read message boards.
Right.
That's what
So
I'm saying.
What about the DC event in the early 90s that it got leaked who the villain was?
Armageddon 2001.
Yeah.
Got leaked and they changed
That was
the
pre-internet.
villain.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pre-internet.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. It's
No, I'm saying the internet it makes it easier to dissect continuity. I'm not
Yes.
saying it's bad. And I said before, we all like to do that.
Right.
It's.
But why are
when I
you
say
worried?
blame, I don't mean it's.
Why are you worried though? You're worried that this
Because
is
I feel like it's getting worse, and people spend more time talking about what doesn't make sense as opposed to whether or not they enjoyed the comic book.
Right.
And that's my last point is, what's more important? Is it more important that it all makes sense, or is it more important that it's
Well,
a
look
good
what
story?
DC just did. They went and they took all of their Elseworld stuff and their disparate things that weren't in a continuity, and they went and they tied them into one big continuity now.
after erasing.
Why
all
would
of
they
them.
do that to themselves? I mean, like, they want
I don't
everything
know.
to be connected. It
I
just
don't
sounds like they
think
made it
it's-
really
I
hard.
think they're doing just for the year, and they're going to get.
And then they're gonna take it all away.
Right.
Yeah.
When the DO
I've
regime
got
is over.
I've got no.
Build it up,
basis
tear
for
it
that.
down. Build it up, tear it down. Yeah. I mean, what is Final Crisis?
But Ron, at what point for you does it become more
Wouldn't it be
about?
great at the end of Final Crisis, like DC just shuts down? They're like, we're done.
It was final. We weren't lying about
No,
that.
it's over. No, really, we're just and they just crank out movies.
At what point, Ron, does it become more important?
Would
that
you
it all
freak
makes
out?
sense? It would be really weird. I think. Would it make at what point is it more important that it all makes sense in a row as opposed to whether that's a good story?
Well, I think it's tough for me because I'm in a position where I need to get over my desire
You
for it to make
acknowledge that,
sense.
then.
Yeah, but I acknowledge that. But the thing is, to me, it is. I would give it maybe a third of my time. A third of my time is spent wondering how these.
I'm
stories
amazed
fit
that you
in.
can come up with a number.
Well,
I mean, that's...
the remaining 2/3. Another third is enjoying the stories, and the last third is sleeping.
Because you a third of his time.
It's pretty.
Because you do
This
see
day is a
interviews
nightmare.
with creators and things who say, it's hard to deal with the hamstringing of the continuity.
Yeah.
At what point is it
So don't-
keeping them from telling the stories?
go write your own
But what's
stories.
been the best X-Men book of the last 2 years?
Over the last 2 years, it's been astonishing.
And that book has almost got no continuity in it whatsoever.
No.
Almost none. Almost none.
It's. I can see where it's stitched into the X-Men continuity.
It is connected to what came before it, though.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But it doesn't concern itself with everything.
What's happened is that what I think what you're saying is that what the events that happen in Astonishing X-Men number 23 have no ramifications in New X-Men number 24 and X Factor number 12
currently,
and currently right now.
The thing is, this is something that the Prestige creator has brought in. And now when you have Joss Whedon, they say to him, just write a book and do what you want and make your own rules. We'll sort it out later. Yeah. Which, for me, ultimately is going to lend you better stories that are going to stand the test of time longer, that you can use to get more people in. They want to. The thing is, they want to. You're going to hate it, but they're going to want to be able to make trade paperbacks and stories that stand on their own, that they can use to give to people.
Right. Which I understand. Yeah. But then at the same time, but X-Men in particular, X-Men often get beat up for their continuity, for their heavy continuity, because
it's crazy.
So much. But I eat it up with a spoon. I love it. It's like,
but there's 100,000.
But how good have the books been?
Well, admittedly, the books haven't been as good. I don't blame continuity for that. I blame storytelling. You put Chuck Austin on a book for years, and it's going to suck.
Storytelling is affected by having to stick to the continuity.
No, but as more recently, we're coming upon an exercise, as I'm saying, and I believe that the Peter David on X Factor and Brubaker on Uncanny are doing it in a way that it's.
Brubaker had a year of very mediocre Uncanny.
I disagree. I thought it was good.
Now Peter David's book is doesn't seem to be tied in.
It's tied. It's tied in. Yeah, it's using characters.
Then it's written well because it's from a point of view where I don't need to know.
See, the thing is that you can use continuity to overshadow poor creators. A creator comes on a book, does a bad job, they're like, well, the continuity's crazy. I don't know what to make heads or tails of it. You're just not good. Maybe you didn't do a good job.
Well, if that's the case, there's only 3 or 4 good comic writers.
Maybe there is. Maybe that's true.
See, I don't believe that's true. I just think they're stuck. Because when they do things that aren't in continuity, they do well.
Well, there's other things, too.
Who does it well?
Who does what well?
Who does it well?
Continuity well?
Yeah.
Peter David, you just said.
Peter David. I think Jeff Johns does it well.
Jeff Johns is he's a savant of continuity.
Yeah, Mark Waid, I think, does too.
Mark Waid's almost too good.
Yeah.
Mark Waid and Kurt Busiek are two guys who, to me, they're too tied in to what happened before, and I don't want that.
Yeah, I think that's a little true. But Jeff Johns and I would say Bendis in a certain degree too. Bendis in a current sense are both writing modern stories that you guys can enjoy from a story standpoint and are scratching my itch of a continuity.
Actually, also, I'll give it Ed Brubaker. His books are very historically tied in a way that they're actually so far back that we don't even remember what he's referring to.
Yeah, the Daredevil dude.
Daredevil, it happens in Captain America.
Who the fuck is this guy? Yeah.
So why is it that you refer to yourself as a continuity nerd and not as a comic nerd?
No, I'm a comic nerd too. I'm a comic nerd who happens to be a subclass continuity nerd.
He's got a concentration.
Yeah.
He's
of the phylum of
See, I think this is becoming a problem.
I think you should relax a little.
I'm the one who's relaxed. It's the people who get freaked out over the continuity.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I think ultimately people who get freaked out over things like this can just take a chill. I mean, I've learned to chill out over it. As
opposed to the dude from the convention panel who was mad about the goatee on Oliver Queen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that kind of fan, and they exist where they're.
But the thing is
they're going to be crazy about something else, though.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, fandom is a weird thing, and people,
Jodie Foster letter writers.
People are going to freak out.
I just think the more you focus your lens, you tighten the focus, the harder it is for people to come into.
Is this a plea?
I think.
What is your plea?
I think what he's saying is, in order to grow the fan base, the readership of comic books, you've got to get away from that a little bit, or at least make it penetrable.
Yeah.
And if you keep catering to the guys who freak out over this stuff, you're never going to be able to cater to other people.
I do agree with that. I don't think the publisher should kowtow to the crazies on the internet, of which we are of them. Being reactionary is never a good way to be. I think you want to be strategic and you want to know that. And again, I think Jeff Johns and Bendis do that well. Where Bendis is just we've heard him on Word Balloon and in interviews and stuff like that, where he just calm down. It's going to be okay. Wait a year when you see the story.
Comic book fans also react before they maybe should have, because we're getting here's a little story. Yep. Wait a month. Here's a little story. Wait 4 months because somebody's sick. Wait, here's a little story.
Which, admittedly, I like that too. I like the delay. I like being strung along.
It can be part of it that's fun, and I think you're good at separating it.
It's masochistic, really.
It's
is. Just oh my god.
I think you enjoy the angst that comes along with it.
Totally.
But you also want to be able to feel this actually comes from you want to feel like you know more than the creator. That's totally where it comes from. They totally got that wrong. That's not how his costume should be, and he was not in their room. To my defense, I've never been like that. I've never been that pouch should be on the right as opposed to the left on Nick Fury and that kind of thing.
Some other people might be, but no. But I've been more about, okay, I want to know how this fits in the fabric of time. When did, and when you start playing with time travel and things like that, that becomes a natural kind of thing. Like so Steve Rogers and the Invaders are coming back from the 40s to now. That happens after Steve Rogers died in Captain America 25, and so because that affects the mood of the universe. If you just want to tell a good story, you're right. It's a tricky thing. If you just want to print that graphic novel or that trade paperback and have it be a story standing on your own, you can do that, but I do think you can do it within the context of a huge universe and not get all caught up in the continuity. I believe it's possible.
Somewhat.
And I think that the X-Men argument about the continuity ruins the X-Men is just a crutch that people use to blame bad quality. There, I said it.
I just think it's the cause of the bad quality.
No, I disagree. I think bad creators are the cause of the bad quality.
Well, the movies had no continuity, and they made a lot more than the books have made in a long time.
Well, the movies had a continuity, too.
Except the last one. Yeah. Although that made a lot of movie money, too. So.
What do we know?
Anyways, clearly this is a topic you can go on about for friggin' ever. Especially when you have people on diametric sides of the argument. Anyway, so if you want to send in your own book-length email about this, you can write to contact@ifanboy.com.
They're going to be angry.
And if you want to point out lapses in our continuity, you can call us at 1-888-FANBOYS.
You weren't wearing that shirt?
It's 1-888-326-2697, and you can tell us what we got wrong.
You can go to iFanboy.com. There's going to be a post about this show, and you can go there in general just to talk about continuity, because we do enjoy it. And also, you go to revision3.com/iFanboy, you go to the forums there, and there's lots of continuity talk going on there.
And the thing is, the continuity talk is fun.
And I said at the beginning, we all enjoy it. I'm not saying we don't.
Superman's got a mangled continuity, too.
He's fucked.
Too pretty.
Your big brown eyes. You know I can't resist those big brown eyes. Come here, you.
I'm feeling left out.